it's one thing to know it in your mind, like all the things you're learning, but like to be able to physically and tangibly feel like, oh, I'm actually really growing as a person. What made me start doing this with Tanya? Well, last year I found myself, probably a year ago, over a year ago at this point, I like found myself in this new relationship and like recognized that I had a lot of emotional baggage to be brought in and a lot of unhealthy habits and patterns. And I had done therapy for like a year prior and just got like no benefit out of it. And then got introduced to Tanya, tried it out, and obviously it's been a good journey since. I reached a point where I was feeling good. Like, okay, like I know how to handle situations. Like I feel like stable. I feel like I've got it. Like I kind of reached a point where like I think I'm good now. Like I don't think I need anything. Like I remember reaching a point where I'd show up and I'd be like, I don't really feel like I have anything in process anymore. And I like really wanted to quit. Like I wanted to just be like, I'm good. Like, why show up to this Zoom call if I don't have anything? And I remember it's like those like Zoom calls where you show up and don't have anything in process, where I would leave like with the biggest breakthrough that was so unexpected. Or even like on the days where I just didn't feel like it, where I was like emotionally out or like even like physically sick, like even just that act of showing up, those are like the biggest breakthrough moments because you're like building trust with yourself, and it's choosing yourself. It's like choosing to fight for something, even though you feel like you're kind of over it and you might not need it. And we all know that was what, 6 months in, I'm 15 months in. So clearly we still needed it. And then even like a few months after that, I like reached a point where I'm like, oh, now I need trauma therapy. And like, I had told Tanya, I was like, so casually, I was like, yeah, so I'm going to actually go see someone else. Like, thank you for the work we've done. Like, I'm going to go. And I remember your response to that was like, I really want to encourage you to just like give me 4 more weeks. Like, let's commit 4 more weeks. And if you still feel that way at the end of it, then I respect that. But like, let's do it. 4 more weeks. And I didn't want to. I'm like, I'll let you know. I'll give it a few days. And I'm like, it's a low risk. I'm like, what's 4 more weeks? And I did it. And again, it was that moment where I'm like, oh, this is actually what's going on. There's a lot more depth to this. And I actually really need this. And it was like from that place where like I recognized that the relationship I was in was not serving me very well. And so like ended up breaking up with him. I like hit a point of being stable and then felt good. And what happened? We were planning on ending, that was like what, October-ish, September, October.
Yeah.
1 year. We were ending around December. And then lo and behold, baby girl starts relapsing a little bit. All this codependency came back in. I was spiraling again. It was crazy. And I'll be honest, I reached a point where I'm like, okay, I'm done with Tanya in December. I'll just be done. And then I won't have her as accountability anymore. And then I can just go ahead and like continue on with like what choices I want to make with this guy. And then I remember thinking that and like telling her on a Zoom call, like, hey, I had this thought where like, I'm ready to be done because I don't want your accountability. That taught me so much in the sense of like, being able to really go to like a safe and honest place and have that conversation. And then B, it's like, obviously admitting it to yourself was huge because I'm like, well, that's all the more reason to commit to another few months. And like also working past the shame of that. Cause I'm like, no, I'm actually thankful that like I relapse now versus like when I was already outside of it, because now we can commit to like really reestablishing what we just spent the last year learning. So like recommitted to that. And honestly, you guys, like it was the last 2 months that I've seen the biggest breakthrough and like the most like tangible transition for my life. It's one thing to know it in your mind, like all the things you're learning, but like to be able to physically and tangibly feel like, oh, I'm actually really growing as a person. And like I like have come to every session with like, I have a growth marker, I had a growth moment, like, and it's been so beautiful. And it took me like 12 months to like reach that point, which no shame behind any of that. Like we're all on our own journey. It's going to take as long as it needs to. But like my biggest takeaway is honestly, the sort of thinking has changed my life. Like, and that one also took me like 12 months to really like get into my brain. But like, it's taught me like to self-regulate, I think, because I used to spiral so much emotionally. Like it was really easy for me to just spiral and let my emotions totally lead my whole life. And like being able to catch when that's happening and like take it to my little mindset, pack it, and then like that's been really healing. And also, I don't know if everyone's done it yet, but like 4 pillars, the biggest thing is not taking things personally. Like that's transformed my life insanely over the last 2 months, where it's like everyone's response to you is a direct reflection of them and what they are experiencing. Like it's not me. So like that itself has been such a huge like transformation. And it really is that concept of like, you're going to get in this as much as you put into it. So it's a matter of like taking yourself seriously and taking this process seriously, because it's only a limited amount of time. Like you're not going to have this like coaching and accountability for your whole life. And that's good. You want to reach a point where you don't have to, but like, this is such a sacred time to just really show up and commit. So like show up every week, even if you don't feel like it, even if you feel like whatever it is, like be intentional in showing up for yourself for this process, put your whole self into it, no matter how vulnerable or raw or uncomfortable it feels. My last thing I'll say is like, I remember saying like where I'm at now is a place where I like thought would be impossible for me to ever get in my life. And like now I'm able to look back and be like, I'm actually walking in where I thought I would never walk. So I actually remember this really pivotal moment where like I was like showing up to a call crying. I just need to be heard right now. Like I just need the space to like be where I'm at and have that be okay. And that was a huge moment for me because I've always had a hard time asking for what I need. And that was really cool. But she also didn't let me sit in it, which I appreciate. She gave me the space for it. But then also was like, yeah, but let's actually talk through this. A. B. I remember in my little relapse state, I was like, every single session I'd come up doing the same thing. And I'd be like, but I'm giving myself grace. Like I'm giving myself this time. And you're like, you reach a point after a few sessions where like, okay, you've been giving yourself grace for the last month. And there's no resolution or change happening. So that's just an excuse at this point. That again was like one of those call out moments where it's like, that's really shitty to hear. And that makes me uncomfortable because I know I need to change what I'm doing. So I myself know that I don't actually like what I'm doing. So anyways, that was a really big moment.
And there were many times where Bethany, even recently, like even still, because she's overcoming the people pleasing, right? But she is overcoming it by not giving in to it. But she'll tell me like, I didn't want to tell you about this. I didn't want to tell you that I made this choice, but I made this choice. And one of the beautiful things that's been happening in that is Bethany has learned how to own Bethany. She's learned how to own herself, every part of herself, her bright, shiny self and her shadowy self.
Yeah.
And she's learned how to own her choices and the consequences of her choices. And so she's showing up to life fearless, things that would come up and in the past shrink her back and make her feel really small. She's like thinking about it, making a choice, committing to the choice, and knowing that no matter how it plays out, she's going to learn from it. She's going to grow from it. She's got the tools to navigate it. She's even reached out to support, she's got her support system outside of this space that she's developed. And she's learned the power of picking your people wisely, not just picking people who are going to tell you what you want to hear, right? But going to the people who are going to be a safe sounding board, but also help you see what you're not seeing so that you can get unstuck. Yeah, so good. Thanks, Beth. So there's actually 3 of you on this call are here because of the transformation that Bethany has gone through. And you were like, what is going on in your life? I need whatever you're doing, right? Can I see your hands so everyone else knows who you are? So can the 3 of you share one thing? Let's celebrate Bethany. What's one thing that you've seen her blossom in? Nancy, go first. Nancy, how long have you known Bethany?
So Bethany has worked with me for the last 6 years. And
what have you noticed that's changed about her?
Oh my gosh. I would not be with Tanya if it wasn't for Bethany. Like, it's just crazy. The communication, Bethany working with Tanya, like she's so confident in herself, and like she's accountability is a huge one, and all that, like working with you, Tanya, has seeped into work. So like just seeing that, I'm like so proud of you, Bethany, and that's why I'm here too now, because I saw it for myself. This girl is like night and day.
Nancy is a business owner, so Bethany's been working for Nancy. So as a business owner, you saw her showing up at work differently.
Incredibly, like amazingly different. Yeah.
Amrita, how long have you known Bethany, and what have you noticed change in her?
So I've known Bethany for 3 years now. She is like I could cry about it. She is completely different from when I met her, because she would just like bottle up her feelings, and now she's just like letting it all hang out, and she just, here we go, which is a good thing. And you know, I'm so proud of you, Beth. I love you so much. Yeah.
Charity and Beth are sisters.
Yeah, I've known her her whole life. For better or for worse. No. We so we had a very tumultuous childhood. I'm the oldest and she's the youngest by 4 years, and that, you know, we went through a lot together, but we also had very vastly different experiences. She was the baby and I was the I don't know, maybe parental figure in a lot of senses for my siblings. So we have a very, very close bond, but we also learned vastly different coping mechanisms, which then created, I don't know, I would say at times in our life, some like distance, because we handled things completely opposite. I have absolutely just seeing you like what, 2 weeks ago or like a week ago, just speaking to you. Yes, I feel like I can have conversations with you now. Like and I don't have to like, okay, like, is this gonna upset her? You have like shown up as like not my like baby sister. Like, you were like a woman that I can like, we can address things. And I know that if we are going to have conflict, because we are family and we love each other, but I know now that like we will figure it out. And I know that you will come to me if I overstep a boundary. And I know that I am safe to do the same with you. You know, our family's very fractalized. Not a lot of people engage with each other. And I know that we will not create that pattern, and we will be in our other's lives closely forever. And I really do see that as a benefit from this practice and from this process. So I just love you. Love you. Thank you. It has been really cool to like, because I remember talking to Tanya, like I feel like being the youngest growing up, I have felt like the youngest, even in like adult life, and even with my siblings and my family especially. Like I've always felt like the child. And that I'm definitely played out in the way that you and I have like interacted, Charity. And within the last few months, I feel like like you said, like you're actually interacting with a woman now, and I feel like a woman versus a child, and that's been like first time in literally 25 years. So it's been so cool, and thank you 3 for being on this journey with me and for your grace and love. And I love you guys.
So we're gonna open up some space for questions. And then we're going to land the plane because we're going to get out of here at 5:30, like I said, and we're almost there. So open space to ask Bethany questions.
I appreciate you sharing so vulnerably. That's just awesome. I love it. One of the things you said was like really committing to the process. Maybe can you share a little bit for someone who's like first week in and someone, you know, who's been around for a bit? Like, what does that look like for you as far as like fully all in committing to the process? Like, do you have any specific tangibles, things that like really work for you, and what did that look like?
Yeah, showing up for it. You can reach a point, especially because you are just starting out, like there's a lot in the beginning, like it can be really uncomfortable, really emotional, and that itself can be draining. So like choosing to show up and commit to it, even in the midst of that, and even in the discomfort of like learning new coping mechanisms, honestly, taking homework seriously, like that is something that I did not do for a few months, because I would probably save it for the day of my coaching session. Tanya saw that and called that out, but like the homework she's giving has a lot of depth and has a lot of like meat to it. So like really like committing to doing that throughout the week was a huge difference for me. So I would just say like, and even when you feel good, because you are going to reach a point where you feel like you've like got it, and that's probably going to hit around the 6-month mark. Even in that, like you're not done yet, like push past that and even show up when you're comfortable, because that's again when like such big breakthrough moments are going to happen.
You know, I've been doing this now for 3 years. I'm currently coaching 14 women across the states, and I've noticed the pattern of about 4 to 6 months in, depending on how much resistance you've come. She came in with more resistance, so it took her about 6 months. Haley, for example, she came in charging, ready to go from day one, very little resistance. Around 3 months, she was like, I'm good. So it's like 4 to 6 months, you're going to start feeling more regulated and more stable. But the thing is it's still just a practice, and that required accountability is going to get you over the hump of falling back into old patterns, right? Because it's not just about doing homework or learning new things. This process, this living beautifully process, is about living beautifully. It is about a lifestyle. It is about looking at how you're living your life, assessing what is no longer serving you, and then forging a new path into a new realm. And that's what Bethany said. Like, I literally am living in a way that I never thought I could. I never thought this would be accessible to me. But I'm here now and I'm owning it. And this is just the beginning. How she's perceiving the world and her experiences and how she's processing them is not from this powerless place. It's not from a victim mindset. It's not from a lack mindset. It's an empowered mindset. It goes from being a practice. And then finally what happens is we start to embody it. And that's what I'm looking for in a graduate, is somebody who's now consistently over the course of 8 weeks or so been showing up, and they are processing and perceiving life in a different way, and they're consistent in it. It doesn't mean that they're not she's been grieving. She's been feeling a lot of emotions. You know what I mean? She's questioned some of the choices she's made, but she's owned them. It's not about perfect. Perfect is not the goal here. And it's not about arriving. But it is about owning ourselves, knowing ourselves, owning ourselves, and living from a position of empowerment, not avoiding anything because we're afraid, right? Becoming fearless. And even when we feel that fear, forging a path ahead anyways. The other thing is Bethany never missed one session, not one. We've been working together for 15 months. She's never even, and she's a traveler. She travels for work. She travels a lot. She's met me on the road. You know what I mean? If she's out of town, she still honors her commitment to showing up. Like, she has made showing up for herself a priority. And I agree with her. And I say it from day one, like, you're going to get out of this process. You're going to get out of life what you put into it, this process or something else. You're going to get out of life what you put into it. And if you're showing up half-heartedly, half-assing it, just scratching the surface, just doing the minimum required just to get by, you're only going to get so far with that. But if you really want to change your life, if you really want to live wholehearted, free, confident, secure, stable, that's going to require, it comes with a cost. And it's not just paying the rate every month. It's doing the work on a day-to-day basis. That's how you pave the way to a new lifestyle. Any other questions before we wrap up? We've got about 10 minutes to go.
I just want to ask you, like, how does it feel? Because like you said, I think you've been, I can't pronounce the word, but yes, you've been the child, you've been the baby, you know, your whole life. And so how does it feel to embody that?
Yeah.
Like womanhood and independence outside of the family dynamic or outside of whatever, like in your own right. Yeah. How does that feel for you? It's been like actually insane. Like it's been wild because it's every area. Like it's one of those things that's like impacting every area. It's like in that of like being a woman, it's like, oh, so me owning my decisions for myself, even though people might not understand them, people might aren't going to agree. I used to really just like care so much about the response that I would live by their thoughts and opinions. And so now it's like, no, I'm making a decision and it's okay. People aren't always going to understand, but this is what I know I need or what I wanted to do. And though it doesn't make sense, I'm going to do it. And like, there's just been so much like empowerment in that. And so that itself is like, it's like a physical feeling. It's kind of crazy. I can feel it in my chest and like, yeah, so that's been cool. And even even the way that I'm able to interact with you, like you're no longer like, because you're no longer like this parental figure for me. Like I look up to you like that, but like you're able to be yourself and be a sister and not have to have this mother role to me. And like, I'm sure that's so freeing for you as well. Like being able to show up like that. Like I said, like I saw you briefly, right, a week ago. And like even just situations where I was kind of anticipating maybe some like resistance or maybe some disappointment or maybe some whatever, like you did not like, not even in a way where you felt that way, but you were trying to not feel that way. Like you just didn't, like you were just like chill. Like I could just feel, like I could see it like in you, just like this like restfulness and like, yeah. You know, I guess peace. It's like it's so overused, but peace. Like,
And so I'm glad that you were like feeling that in your body. And I want you to know that it's like showing. It's not just like something that you're talking about. Like you show up differently, and I want to validate that.
Thank you. And it especially means the world coming from you. And this is a vulnerable sister moment, but thank you.
Yeah. You're welcome. I love you.
So looking back at the girl who started this process to the woman who's in front of us now, what were some, maybe you mentioned a couple pivotal moments, but what were some things that you were scared to face emotionally or to overcome or to bring up that you like did not want to, but looking back now at your journey, you're so thankful that you had Tanya and that you went through that? If there's anything that like specifically speaks to you through that.
Yeah, I think one of the big things for me was like, I just like very much would immerse myself into other people. Like I had no sense of self in the beginning of this. That as well as like, I was really codependent on like everyone around me, those things. And then also just had a lot of like, I think abandonment of self was a big one for me that I didn't want to face, because in not abandoning yourself meant showing up for yourself and then speaking for yourself and like speaking out your needs. And like, that was like such a big uncomfortable for like one for me. Because I'm very much so like Enneagram 9. Well, I might be a 2 when I'm healthy, but like very much so peacemaker. So like the idea of disrupting any of like the peace or like the flow like stressed me out. Like I would rather shut myself down than do that. And so like I know for a fact that facing those things of codependency, owning yourself, like having like learning a voice for yourself, for myself, those are some of the biggest things for me that were really hard to overcome. And like especially with codependency, like you have to unlearn that so hard. Learning to be codependent throughout childhood, throughout your adult life, and then like wanting to one day do it differently. Like that's not a change that happens overnight. So like having to be consistent and showing up in that and like making my like mindful decisions to like not be dependent, which is honestly something I'm still working on today. Like I noticed something come up like that today where I'm like, which obviously it's a lot easier to process nowadays because you know how to process it. But like, I'm sorry if I'm all over the place with this answer, but
No, it's perfect.
Okay. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. You added value. I appreciate it.
So Mariah's going to be the last question.
I just wanted to ask Bethany, how did codependency show up for you in, in the beginning or in your life with people?
Yeah.
Like, what are things that you did or like thoughts that you had or, stuff show up for you?
Yeah, I think a good example for this would be my latest relationship, because that's where I started to really recognize it for what it was. And like, I just remember whenever he was not okay, or he had a bad day, or like something like stressed him out, I instantly took that so personal. Like, there's something I did, like there's something, and I would like rack my brain to be like, what did I do? What did I say differently? What did he see that like I did, when realistically it was like more often than not, it was never me, but like my mind would just spiral, creating these false things, which totally impacted our relationship. And then just like neglected myself. And just, again, that comes into like taking what they're experiencing personal, which it's never personal. So like, and that even showed up in work. Hi, Nance. I feel like even like, as you're my boss and you're like allowed to tell me what you want and don't want in my work, that's your job. I would get so offended and take that so personally that I would leave our meetings probably crying.
Yes.
And that would be
it was wild to see, for me to give you all the ideas and what I'm envisioning, and then you to take it personal. You would take it so personal where you would shut down. I'd be like, I don't understand. And then working with Tanya, now you're like fully like taking it in. Yep. All right. How can I make this even better? So it's been such an amazing like work experience.
Yeah. It's been like a night and day difference with that. So like, I think codependency showed up in a way of taking everything personal, when realistically it's never. That's why don't take it personal, it's hitting so hard, because that directly impacts codependency. Like, so I think that'd be a big one, if that answers your question.
Thank you.
It does. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bethany. Let's give her a hand, you guys.